Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of Moonshiners Racing presented by Depot Street Sports. I'm your host, Michael Rizzo. I'm joined with Bunny and Zachary Kendall. Aiden might be showing up. I don't know, maybe not. But hey, we're back. We're ready to talk all things All-Star Racing, get you ready for the Coke 600. But first, guys, how we doing?
I'm doing well. Coming off of what was a very chaotic, um, very chaotic all-star race. I'm excited to get to this weekend. Hopefully, Mother Nature can cooperate because it is some exciting racing that's set to be in store. Obviously, you got the Monaco, I think, and then you got Indy 500, and then you got the Coca-Cola 600. So definitely looking forward to this weekend. And well, I'm painting my house right now, so I've been a little busy doing that. So, all in all, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really excited for the Coke 600. Growing up and stuff, we'd always go to the beach this week, and it was always fun to actually be able to sit down at the beach and watch the Coke 600. You wasn't that far from Charlotte at the time. I'm really only 4 hours away. It's a racetrack that I've always wanted to go to. Pretty excited about it. The All-Star race, I know we're going to dive into it, but it was better than I expected. I'll put it that way. So, doing good here, ready to get going.
Yeah, the All-Star race, like you guys alluded to it, better than I expected as well. I think the racing product was pretty solid for a Dover race. I thought next gen Dover race, that's the best you could get. It really was, and I was concerned that they put the PJ1 on the bottom, middle, and top lanes. I thought that was going to be really bad, but it turned out to be great. It was a really racy track, multiple grooves. Maybe the tire wear was hard to pass. Maybe they didn't like, that's kind of just how the next gen car is. It's really hard to pass when everyone's going the same speed. But other than that, it was a pretty solid race if it was a normal Dover race. But it was the All Star race, and it had a terrible format that we'll get into here soon. But first, let's talk about the winner, that being Denny Hamlin. I think it was obvious he was the favorite to get in this race. He won Dover last year. He dominated Dover last year, and he won it again. And his teammate, who finished second to him last year, Chase Briscoe, finished second to him this year again at Dover. Guys, thoughts on Denny Hamlin getting his I want to say his second or third career, second career All Star race, and his dominating win at Dover.
Just more money in Hamlin's bank account that he obviously needs, considering that his mom, he said it, his mom needs some new furniture for her new house. Um, no, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, the reason why I picked Hamlin was because he's one of the better cars out there at Dover. Not just the last year, the year before that, he won Dover too. So he's got 3 straight years of winning Dover here. And, he had to feel it out a little bit. He got stuck in the pack with the invert that happened in stage two. And he made his way up to like fourth place, I think, before that second stage ended. And he was always already going to be first because he won, or he came in second in the opening stage. So his average finish combined obviously would have got him first position to start out in stage three, and he led from there. So I mean, he's a crafty veteran. He's a guy, we all know how Denny Hamlin is. He's been aging like fine wine, and at Dover, especially, you do need to take care of your tires a little bit. It does tend to wear your tires out more so than other tracks. And Hamlin's one of the better drivers at managing stuff like that. So that's the reason why. That's also the reason why I picked him. And another good win for Hamlin. And you know, that doesn't take away. I want to say this so I don't forget it. The format, which we'll get into, obviously, I'm just going to say it right now. Obviously, it was terrible. I didn't like it. The racing itself, I thought was pretty good for Dover standards, and I think maybe that's because some of the resin they put on there. Because again, you need to have a decent amount of cars out there for that final stage, especially to get rubber on the track so that the track can widen out and people can go certain places. I feel like that was helping it out a little bit because of that, because they put that resin down there and all that. I actually was thoroughly impressed. I've not been that impressed with Dover. It's kind of just been like a middle tier track for me and personally. But in terms of what I was expecting, it actually, I think it was a little better than I thought. So I think all in all, that's good. But otherwise, outside of obviously Hammond also winning, everything else kind of was just a negative.
Yeah, I'm not really shocked that Denny won this race. Uh, I figured that the Toyotas was going to have a strong outcome here, but kudos to Denny. He is. I had it pulled up here, but we was having a streaming issue. He sits probably now top 10 all time as far as average finish with a 15.2. And you've got a few guys in there that hasn't had too many races, but they've run good. So they're a little bit of an outlier. Denny's been 35 race starts there. So I mean, Denny's hot right now. He is. We knew that he was going to come around with everything that was going on. So just took a little bit of time to get there. And yeah, and it's like Zachary was saying, not a big fan of the format, but I like the race itself. We'll get into the rest of it. I'm excited about a couple of these topics.
Yeah, let's get in right into those topics that you guys really want to discuss, and that being the format. There was a lot of wrecks that started this race, and some I did not know going into this race was that if you wrecked out, let's say you were Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, drivers who wrecked early, you could stay in the garage and fix your car as long as you need until that final stage where you are locked into the All-Star race. So guys like Carson Hocevar, Bubba Wallace, there's plenty of others. I think Ross Chastain and Chris Buescher, they all tried to fix their cars to get back out there since they had a previous win. Not Chris Buescher, my bad. but a previous win, and they were locked in to the All-Star race, which was technically that third and final stage. But they couldn't. Some of them couldn't make it, and those that could were a second off the pace, and they really had no point of being out there. So that being said, the format basically was everyone raced. There was multiple 75-lap stages, 2 of them, and where open cars raced to get in, as well as the All-Star race, and it was based on average finish between the 2 stages. And then the final stage happened, and there was 8 or 9 open cars ended up actually making the All-Star race technically because of all the wrecked cars. It was just a clusterfuck. It was bad. It was bad, man. It was terrible. Just the way that was formatted. Let's just take this format and burn it and throw it into the sun. It does not need to be seen in the light of day again. Let's take it back. Put it to Charlotte, make it like an appetizer for the Coke 600, and run a straight up the winners of the previous year. If you want to throw past champions in, and the same rule as if you've won an All-Star race, you're in for the next 10 years, kind of thing. Keep it like that. Have your open, have your fan vote, and that's it. Let's not change it. If you even don't want to have one, I'm fine with it too. But we can't be doing this. And Dover put on such a good race for the next gen car. It does not deserve to have just an exhibition race. It deserves to have an actual punt race that actually has some sort of meaning behind it. Guys, thoughts on just the formatting and what happened there?
Yeah, so these exhibition races like the Clash, like the All-Star, are supposed to be made to be fun, to have like a little bit of a break for some of the drivers, because sometimes they don't always want to be racing for points. And if you're a guy like Chase Elliott that wrecked in this race early, it ain't going to really affect your standings because, again, it was a non-points event. But, that doesn't mean that we have to lose the plot. And I feel like we lost the plot here. When the rules were announced and I looked at it briefly, I was like, that seems like it's a bad idea to not have an All-Star race without an open. And then I just didn't look at it again until before this race, because, again, it was like I didn't want to focus too much on those type of rules, because I'm worried about every other race that's going on, because those races are points and this one wasn't. Now we get to this weekend, and sure enough, that first into the second lap, Ryan Preece gets in a very hard crash. Thankfully, he's all right. But it takes out Larson, takes out Blaney, and takes out Elliott. Now, Blaney came back and Larson came back too, but those cars were obviously damaged beyond repair in terms of being able to compete for the win. Elliott ended up getting in a second crash in this race too. And it's because guys like Ryan Preece were obviously trying to battle their way forward, because if you get more positions, the more points you were going to be able to gain at the end of those first two stages. But at the same time, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying about how we needed an All-Star Open. The reason why we have an All-Star Open for the All-Star race is because the All-Star race itself, the main event, was made for champions of the series, All-Star race winners, and then have two guys from the Open race their way in. And that was like the first two spots. So the first guys, the guys that finished first and second, got into the main event, and then you got the fan vote, which, in this one, because so many Open drivers got in from, because of the amount of crashes that was happening. I was thinking that Cody Ware was going to get in the All-Star race, and that would have been just very disastrous. But you had a guy like Daniel Suarez who wasn't, I don't know how the results were, but I guarantee I don't think he was probably not even top 3 in terms of fan voting for that. Yet he got in it because the first 3 guys that were probably the tops in terms of fan votes got in already, because they either raced their way in or they were just ahead of him at the time of those end of those first 2 stages, and they're just he's the next best guy, we got to give it to him. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I wanted to get off my chest, is the fact that we had no All-Star Open, and you had a bunch of guys out there that were being desperate. And I think the part of the reason why they didn't have an All-Star Open is because they were worried, and they saw the criticism and the feedback from the drivers and the fans themselves, that Dover is a track that needs a lot of rubber to be put on it. So their answer for that was just to throw all the cars out there from the very beginning, to then obviously have a lot of rubber put down, and then maybe the track could widen out, without thinking the fact that there's a lot of guys out there that are going to be desperate, trying to go forward, and it's going to take out the guys that should be in there to begin with. And that was obviously Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney. Even though I said Larson and Blaney came back, they were still had damaged cars. And in my opinion, you got to get back to the basics, like what Rizzo was saying. I think you need to take it back to Charlotte. I liked it really. The week before the Coca-Cola 600 really got me prepared for that race. The families of the drivers can watch them race, obviously close to home. They can be at their homes, and I think it's less wear on the drivers and on the travel teams as well. So I think that's a big plus for everybody. Don't get me wrong. For the first the last couple of years it was in Charlotte, I was getting a little bored with it, because it's obviously you don't want to see something go stale. But the answer is certainly not putting it at Dover, a place that deserves a points race in itself. And you had it right with North Wilkesboro, in my opinion, but North Wilkesboro was going to get a points date sooner rather than later. So I would take it back to Charlotte and then go from there and get back to the basics, which is an All-Star Open and then the main event.
Yeah, I got to catch part of this race while we was out, and then I listened to the majority of it. But it was confusing as to what was going on. You had things that was not very well elaborated on the radio and stuff. But to add to what you were saying there, I agree. It should go back to Charlotte. It should go back to North Carolina, and be able to have family, friends, and all of everybody, even the team members, stuff like that, at the track on what is more of a relaxed weekend. And for being locked into the main event, like Larson, Elliott, stuff like that, it's almost like, do you want to run and do you want to take a chance at it, or do you just want to save your car? Because what was it? Gordon, how many years ago, he actually got to go pull out the backup car, wreck going into turn 1 there. And it's been known that NASCAR pulls out some different things, and I almost expected to see it this weekend. Is like, hey guys, you can go get your backup cars for the main event. And I was like, I didn't like that fact. I do like that they allowed them to repair their cars, but I felt like they should be at a penalty because you was so many laps down, stuff like that. There should have been a clause in there. But overall, if like we was saying, if it was a Dover race, it would have been a really, really good Dover race. But as far as the All-Star, we're going to have to do something to bring that action back, bring things back into play that's more exciting and stuff like that. But get the All-Star race away from Dover, and if you can produce what we've seen on the track for a Dover race, I think it's worth going back there for a race. I'm not a big fan of the Dover track, but if you can at least give me what you had this weekend, I think it's worthy of it. And for what Rizzo was saying about the format, as far as how he sees it playing out, yeah, keep it simple. The winners, past winners, top 2 fan vote. Done. Keep it simple. I don't like a convoluted bunch of rules, but whatever you go into the race with, let's follow it.
Yeah, I just think NASCAR should stick to its roots. I think it tries to do too much and get away from it. We've seen in the past where was it 2018 where they pretty much brought a drafting track, extreme high downforce. That was a terrible, terrible race. I remember that one. They were moving like snails across the track. I mean, they were barely moving when they were by themselves. Then you put them in a pack, they were still kind of barely moving. Yeah, like I said, like when it comes to these exhibition races, just keep it simple, throw it back to what you have been doing, what worked, and then all of a sudden, you had Bill France or whatever his name was, guy who got arrested for drugs. Tried changing everything and making it a whole lot worse and more convoluted, confusing for your normal average viewer. Just keep it simple. When it comes to the All-Star races, it's the year's winners, past champions of the sport, past winners of the race in the 10 years. Your fan vote, have 2 from the open race. And bring back the burnout competition. I really liked that when I was younger, watching that one. I know that some people didn't like it. I thought it was awesome. Have the old school pit crew competition. I always enjoyed that when I was a kid. I think that was always on Thursdays, I want to say it was, or something like that. I would always come home from school and I'd turn that on immediately. I couldn't wait to watch that one. And then when it comes to the Clash, Dale Jr.'s been talking about it all week long. 25 laps at Daytona. Have your pole winners, your fastest drivers actually be in it, like it was supposed to be original. And whether it's 8 cars, 12 cars, or 15 cars that win a pole, your fastest cars, they'll put on a show. And like he said, and like what I said earlier, these races are appetizers for your big crown jewels. It's supposed to gauge your audience. Maybe your core fan base will actually watch it. Maybe it'll only be them, but still, it's a fun race for us core fans and diehards, growing up watching these. And one more thing I want to add, it has to be at night. I mean, this race, when it started, was called the One Hot Night, and this ran midday at Dover. So one hot night, run at night and have a good race. And I think if NASCAR could do that, we'll have a successful All-Star. But now let's move on and talk about the O'Reilly Auto Parts race. Pretty solid race. Corey Day nabbed his 2nd career win and a great race to the finish. Him having fresher tires, 3-wide battle there late in the race around Justin Haley took the bottom. Middle was a lapper that kind of couldn't decide what lane he wanted, and Corey Day came flying around the outside off of turn 2, getting the lead and ended up getting the win. I think this is where we expected Corey Day to show that winning speed that he's had, and maybe not so much Talladega where he got his first career win, but here at Dover, it was kind of, you knew he was going to be solid. I think going into the weekend, you knew he kind of had a good shot at winning, and he's starting to figure it out just in time when people start talking about him possibly being in that 48. Guys, thoughts on the O'Reilly race and Corey Day picking up his 2nd win?
Yeah, so I watched this entire race. The first thing that I wanted to discuss isn't Corey Day. It's the other HendrickCars.com driver and Rajah Caruth. It was a tale of 2 separate races for Rajah. The first half, really good. He was actually in the top 5, battling for the lead at one point, getting a decent amount of points. And then the second half kicked off, and he immediately threw it away when he got underneath Jesse Love. And, he overdid it a bit, cooked it in the corner, and he and Love went up the track, and obviously damaged Love's car. Caruth saved his, but he was put back further in the pack, had to get new tires, and then he spun underneath Harrison Burton a few laps later after that, in like a span of like 10 minutes. And then I found it, like I saw one of his comments after the race is like, "I'm racing for my life." I kind of found that really interesting. Again, Raja's admitted that he does have a hard time finding a sponsorship. I think that's why you see it. He's not running a full JRM schedule because he can't find the funding to do that. Unlike a Sammy Smith who has Pilot behind him, backing him. And I've admitted, I really hate that sponsorship dictates some of the rides that these drivers get. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and he needs to work through that. And at the same time, he's also still unproven, and that's why you see him making these mistakes over and over and over again to the same guy. So Jesse Love, steer clear of Raja Caruth from now on, because it's going to end up pretty bad if you don't do something about it. It seems like, but for Raja, just real quick, again, he's a student of the game. He's a student of racing. He's been trying to get better, and if you compare it to some other guys that don't have as much talent as, say, a Kyle Larson or something like, or a Tyler Reddick or anything like that, because those guys grow up on dirt and they have a lot of raw skill, and they can get probably a lot of raw speed if they can hone it in. You're seeing that with Corey Day right now. He's from dirt and he's honing his craft fairly quickly. But Raja, obviously, he spent like 3 years in trucks, and that third year, I felt like he was really starting to figure it out. It's going to take time for him to figure it out. In the O'Reilly series, obviously, I'm not saying that he's going to be out of NASCAR. Obviously, I don't think that's going to be the case. But he's going to go through some trials, and you're seeing it this year where he's having to split his time between JRM and Jordan Anderson. I think he's feeling that pressure, obviously, because when he's in Jordan Anderson equipment, he's not going to be running as up in the top 10, be as noticeable as some of his other counterparts that he's trying to compete against. So that's the first thing I wanted to say is just, I wish Raja the best, and hopefully, he can, in his time with JRM, obviously flash some of the potential that, he obviously wants to show the other owners or JRM themselves to give him a full-time ride in a car. And then secondly, obviously, Corey Day. A lot of different strategies here at the end of this race. Allgaier pitted before some of the other guys did, and he got lucky with the amount of cautions that was coming out. I feel like obviously that helped him preserve the tires more than what he was able to do. But Corey Day, came on strong there. He was like fourth with like 40 to go, and then he quickly was able to make his way up to second place. And Allgaier tried to take his line away, obviously, which was the high line. He was kind of running. He still was running. Day was running a little bit different line than him, but Allgaier was doing a fairly decent job at trying to hold pace until the lap car came into play. And I don't think the lap car did anything wrong in this instance. I think it was Blaine Perkins. He held his line in the middle of the track. He didn't really get loose, or he didn't really block anybody. He didn't block Allgaier. He didn't block Day. He just held his line in the middle of the corner, and Allgaier made the decision to go low, and Day made the decision obviously to go high, and he ended up getting the momentum off the corner, and he ended up getting the lead. And we've been talking about Corey Day all year long. He was making a few mistakes early on, because he was running up in the front. He was still learning how to drive these cars because, again, he's fairly new still to pavement and asphalt racing, but he was still finishing good in those races, and he's carried that on. And then obviously, Talladega, he was unexpectedly got his first career win. He said it himself. He's not really a super speedway guy. He thought he'd be getting his first win at a track that, it takes you discipline to run the high side. Think of a Darlington. Think of a Bristol. But here at Dover, he was able to pull it off. And again, yeah, you said it, coincidence with the timing, but there are rumors that he might potentially get that 48 car, and what better way to continue to show HMS your skill, your craft, by going out and putting up a performance like that. He definitely closed that race, and good for him.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the ending of this race, watching Corey Day just chip away at Allgaier's lead. And it was some pit strategy and everything there, but for me, that's 2 weeks in a row that we've seen a driver, one in Corey Day, the other one in Zilich, run somebody down and pass them late in the race to steal the win. But a couple of guys here that I had marked as Austin Hill, top 5 finish at Dover. I felt like this was a track maybe he struggled with. And then Anthony Alfredo. There's been a little bit of talk here and there about him. And I actually think that Alfredo's a lot better driver than what it's put out there to be, and maybe what some of his finishes are. And somebody like Ross Chastain back in the day that was a relatively good driver that just didn't have the right equipment. And I'm kind of an Alfredo guy. I don't mind it. I like his name. It's got a hell of a ring to it. But this race for me, I thought it was overall a really good race. The ending was good, so not much more to add.
Yeah, it was a solid race. Just as usual, O'Reilly ends up putting on a good show every week. And you like you mentioned, Zachary, with Raja Caruth. I feel like the two Hendrick drivers, two Hendrick sponsored cars, they're kind of going opposites. They're kind of doing opposites. Started the year, Raja looked like the more polished driver. He had more success in NASCAR. He that being in the Truck Series. He was driving better, all that. And on the other end, he had Corey Day wrecking his teammates, being in the news every week because of something bad he did. And as the season has progressed, it's kind of flip-flopped. And it kind of sucks because I'm a bit of a Raja fan. I think he's a good guy. I think he's, like you kind of mentioned, he's a student of the game when it comes to racing. And he's someone who just is a sponge. He's absorbing information. He's always on the spotter stand. Everyone says, whether it's a cup race, truck race, he's always there. And I think he's letting the emotions of possibly not being in that ride next year get to him too much here. He's got a really fast car. That car should have won the championship last year. It has won with Connor Zilich in the car, Kyle Larson in the car, and other drivers in that car when he's not in the seat. And I'm sure he feels the pressure of it. And it's not needed, but if he just pulls the reins back a little bit, and focuses on him and his season rather than all the other outside factors, I think he'll be better and be able to make the chase and maybe possibly grab that elusive win that he's been looking for. Anyway, let's move on to the Truck Series. Guys, the year's 2016, 2015. KFB Kyle Busch ended up getting the win in dominating fashion in the Truck Series. Guys, thoughts on Kyle Busch? Is he back? Is Kyle Busch back?
When he gets down to the Truck Series, he can flash that old Kyle Busch type of dominance. And, sure enough, in this race, he definitely did. It was like he was battling. It was like him, Ty Majeski, and then somebody else. I can't remember who else. It was like him. It was like those two guys, and I think maybe Hocevar. Was Hocevar in this race, maybe? He was not? Okay, it wasn't him then. It was somebody, okay? It was like Busch, Majeski, and somebody else, right? But Busch was able to, with his expertise, with his, experience level, able to hold off those guys for a decent amount, and he dominated this race. And I think he has over 1,000 laps led at Dover in the trucks, which is kind of crazy. I saw this stat where he's only run like 10 or 11 truck races here. Yeah, he has over 1,000 laps led here, which is insane. So, picking up another win for him, it's obviously good for, Kyle Busch fans because, again, the Cup Series side has been a little bit of a struggle. It's been a little bit better recently, but not in terms of winning. But in terms of results, it has been better. But in terms of winning and wanting to see your driver win, when he goes down the Truck Series, you know he has a good shot at it because he has a win, a second place finish, and now another win. So, and all in all, another good win for Kyle. You know, and specifically, I want to mention this real quick. I think when Kyle Busch is done driving full time Cup, I do think he wants to go down to the Truck Series to run full time for at least 1 year to try and win that championship because you know he has a championship in the O'Reilly Series. He obviously has 2 championships in the Cup. He'd be on a list of drivers, few list of drivers that have won all 3 championships. And he'd do it in a different way. Usually when guys try and do it, they usually obviously go through Trucks, O'Reilly, and then Cup. But he'd go from O'Reilly to Cup, and then he won the O'Reilly championship first in like 09, 10, and then Cup in 2015 and 2019, and now Trucks when he's like 43 years old. So we'll see, but again, good win for KFB.
Yeah, this was a big win for him, I think. I think he really needed it just for himself. And here's one of the questions that I kind of asked myself. Is Kyle Busch the driver still the driver of 6-8 years ago? Because he goes down to the trucks, he can still dominate those races, and he can still perform. He's still outrunning the guys that he competes with on Sunday in the truck race, and he's putting the young and up and comers in their place. So I think the driver is still there, but this was a big confidence boost for him, I think, and it helps. And you've seen it kind of play out on Sunday here the last few weeks once he had went out and they had changed the crew chiefs. I think that he's going in a better direction this year. I'm not a Kyle Busch fan, but I do enjoy, at this point of his career, still being able to go out and dominate a race like this. So,
Yeah, good points, guys, on Kyle Busch and where he's at in his career. I really hope that he could get back, maybe not back to his championship winning days, but his winning days. Just getting a race win at least, because you know, as annoying as it was to see him win, he was one heck of a guy. I mean, he's one heck of a personality, and him winning is good for the sport. When you go and ask just your casual sports fan if they know a NASCAR driver, there's a good chance they say Kyle Busch if they know a driver. And it sucks to see him where he's at today. I guarantee you they don't know Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, or Tyler Reddick, but they probably do know Kyle Busch. So it just I hope for us hardcore fans he gets back to the winning ways at some point. Speed's finally showing up here and there these last couple weeks, like you guys have mentioned, and maybe the wins in the truck series can help out, mentally, just get him ready for it. But he's a champion of sport. He's been here a while. I think these wins help him out, but I don't know if they help him out too much. Moving on, usually this is where we go talk about the point standings, but the points didn't really change much because it was an exhibition race last week. So we're going to move on and talk about the Hall of Fame inductions. That being the inductions came out earlier this week. The voting was on Tuesday. This is being recorded on Wednesday. The 3 drivers the 2 drivers from the modern ballot are Kevin Harvick and Jeff Burton, and the driver from the Pioneer ballot is Larry Phillips. Guys, thoughts on these drivers that made it into the NASCAR Hall of Fame? And do you think someone else should be in instead? I'd like to know your thoughts on this one, guys.
Yeah, so I guess first off, I want to start with congratulations to all the drivers that made it, to all the people that haven't been inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It's a tremendous honor. I've been there a couple times, and it's always special to see, drivers get enshrined into a place that you made your mark in. So I just want to say that first off, and then I guess to start it off, I'm gonna talk about Larry Phillips here because I don't know the least about him. But he didn't have a whole lot of Cup Series career success. Obviously, as I'm seeing when I looked it up, he only had 1 race run, but he was really good for the dirt models and the the weekly series. Excuse me, the weekly series. So like the lower tiers of NASCAR in terms of like racing. But he won it 5 times, and he has like a very good amount of wins in that series. So, when you think of pioneers, obviously you might think of the guys that were in the national series from like the 50s to the 60s. This guy was driving the 80s, stock cars and late models, and NASCAR does care about that. They want to show that they do care about that. So I can see why they put him in there. Because again, when it comes to the pioneer, vote, a lot of these guys, I'm sure the voting panel has a couple of guys on there that can tell you the stories about these drivers or engineers or whoever it is to give them a case, the reason why they should be put in. But most of the time, when you hear these guys' names, you might not know them right off the bat. You have to research them a little bit in terms of the casual fan or even the hardcore fan like myself. I sometimes have to research these guys to see what they're all about. But it is a good honor for him to get in. So yeah, and then from there, I got to talk about. First off, I'll talk about Kevin Harvick. He was a clear first ballot Hall of Famer. I feel like out of this entire class that was eligible, 60-time Cup winner, 47-time O'Reilly Series winner, something like that. And he was a truck owner in the Truck Series, and obviously he's a champion in 2014. Daytona 500 winner and all that. He has all the accolades you'd want. So it makes perfect sense about why he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no denying that. When he retired, obviously, I feel like he retired at the perfect time because he wasn't going to get stalled by a Jimmy Johnson, a Matt Kenseth, a guy that you could clearly put maybe toe to toe, specifically Jimmy Johnson. If you retire at the same time as Jimmy, and they were in the nominees for, at the same time, you can't really put Harvick in there because you need to put Shaq and House in there with Jimmy, which is what they did. So Harvick retiring 2 years later, obviously I feel like was better for him. And, this was his first year on the ballot. And hey, first ballot Hall of Famer is always nice to see. And then Jeff Burton, this is the guy that obviously people found the most polarizing, I feel like, obviously, because there was so much push for Greg Biffle to get in, because obviously the tragedy that happened, and all that. And I want to start by saying again, Jeff Burton is a tremendous driver. Greg Biffle was a tremendous driver. These guys are kind of neck and neck, I feel like, in terms of who goes in first over the other. I feel like you couldn't go wrong either way. Biffle's a 19-time Cup winner. Burton's a 21-time Cup winner. Neither won a Cup championship. Burton has 27 O'Reilly Series wins. Biffle has around 18, I think. And he has a title in that series. He also has a title in the Truck Series. But again, when they're talking about the NASCAR Hall of Fame, as much as the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series can make their mark and have guys in that series to be legends of their own, think of Sam Ard, think of Ron Hornaday, think of all those guys. The NASCAR Hall of Fame is specifically, I feel like, trying to get the Cup drivers, the guys that made the mark in the top level of NASCAR, more. And, if you look at it again, neither has a Cup championship. Burton has 2 more wins. Burton has been a part of the media ever since he stepped away from driving. He's been a broadcaster since he's retired, and he's worked on the Drivers' Council before, too. That's also another thing. So his impact has been shown throughout, NASCAR, even after he retired. And that's what I feel like these guys, the guys that vote on this stuff, the media members, the former drivers, all that, the former Hall of Fame members themselves, that's what they care about a lot, is what was your impact after you stepped away? Did you step away for a good while, or did you actually stay around and try and make an impact somewhere? And I feel like that helped Burton in this case. Not to say that Biffle wasn't doing things. Obviously, we all know about his hurricane efforts to help people in the North Carolina area. They obviously care about that, but the NASCAR Hall of Fame isn't about humanitarian efforts, even though that is a nice thing, and he has gotten awards for it and all that. And, again, I'm not gonna be complaining about they putting Burton in over Biffle. I'm just not. I feel like it's 50-50. You could have gone either guy. But again, I will say, Biffle will get in one day. He will. And Burton just got in this time. And I think all the candidates that got in were well deserved for their honors and should be appreciated as such.
You touched on something there that really sparked a thought in my brain. Uh, do we need NASCAR to kind of divide these Hall of Fames up a little bit? Maybe in a different branch of each other, because you have guys, you mentioned Ron Hornaday, Randy LaJoie was on the ballot this year, and we could sit here and name several others, and especially the truck series. You're going to have somebody like Justin Allgaier that if it's going to be on certain years, is he going to be a guy that even gets in? But look at what he done in the O'Reilly's Bush series, whatever you want to call it, um, for that many years. Is that a guy that may get overlooked in the latter part of his career when he does finally retire? Um, that's kind of something that sparked interest in my mind, is maybe you have it housed under the same thing, but you tiered them a little differently. You try to find somebody in those second and third tier divisions, and an outsider, somebody that was on the, you know, weekend racetracks and stuff, your local, your grassroots, things like that, that may get in. I agree with you. Kevin Harvick, shoe in, first ballot Hall of Famer. Uh, Biffle and Burton for me, I was a little more 60-40 than 50-50. I do think Biffle should have got in just because of his Xfinity Series championship. I think that kind of weighs more, in my opinion, as far as the sport as a whole. But you are right, Zachary. Their statistics and everything is pretty neck and neck for what it's worth. And I'm looking at the list of nominees here, and I feel like Harry Hyde should be somebody that gets in at some point. And do we have to wait until he gets down to the Pioneer ballot to get him in? And I don't know what deems you the Pioneer as far as that goes as NASCAR, but Larry Phillips, I don't really know a great lot about him. You spoke on him. Kudos to him for getting in. And another name for the Truck Series, and that's Jack Sprague, is somebody that was on the list that's probably going to get overlooked for quite a few years before he's eligible to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there's a lot of just there's a lot of guys who should be in the Hall of Fame. I feel like this, looking at the list here that drivers that didn't make it and they were on the ballot. You guys had Neil Bonnet, Randy Dorton, an engine builder who I thought, he has the craziest stats out of all these guys other than Larry Phillips, and we'll get to that one. But he's got like 3 championships. I want to say he's got 6 crown jewels to his name and 100 and something wins because he was an engine builder for Hendrick during the heyday of Hendrick. And, that's kind of crazy. I feel like at some point he deserves to be in. I think his stats were, you look at overall stats, you look at what they did, how many wins, how much success they had as, the role they had in NASCAR. I feel like he had an overall better career than some of these, someone like a Jeff Burton or a Greg Biffle. Neil Bonnet, you could argue the same thing. Sure, he only had 18 career wins on the same amount of wins as Jeff and Greg, but he did a lot for TV, a lot for outside the track. You could say the same thing about Greg Biffle, and just there's a lot of drivers that and a lot of just people in the sport that deserve to get in. Randy LaJoie, he makes seats, racing seats. what would the sport be without him and his seats? I forgot the name that his brand of seats is called, but I mean, he's saved plenty of lives in racing just because he's developed and created a racing seat to help these drivers. And without him, I mean, he should be maybe in for that reason, maybe, right? You look at it. I know some people who don't know Larry Phillips. He's got upwards of 2,000 career wins in NASCAR Regional Series. He's a guy who deserves to be in some sort of racing Hall of Fame, whether it's the NASCAR Hall of Fame or not. I know some people will argue that it should just be the Cup Series driver, because if you were not good enough to make it to the Cup Series, why would you be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame? I totally get that notion, but at the same time, NASCAR overseed all these series, and drivers have, done enough to make it in. That being said, I feel like how NASCAR should do the Hall of Fame is similar how the MLB does it, where you have a certain amount of drivers or people on the ballot, you have a certain amount of votes, and the percentage of however many drivers get in, you can just vote for as many as you want. And, you have to meet a certain percentage, whether that's 80% of the vote, you're in the Hall of Fame, something like that. And one year you could have one guy, the next year you could have 8. I know, Zachary, he's a firm believer that it should only be a few drivers because, how they kind of rushed people in, if you will, in the beginning portions of the Hall of Fame. But I feel like you had to have that base. You had to have those standards in there first before you got everyone else in there. But overall, it's good talking about the history of the sport and talking about these guys and all of them deserving of getting in, that being Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and Larry Phillips. Let's move on and talk about silly season rumors and news. Last week, we kind of discussed it a little bit, and then Jordan Bianchi decided to drop a video right after our podcast, so he must have listened. Anyway, that being said, yep, he talks about the 48. Last week, we there was rumors that Coy Day would be in the 48, but there's also rumors that there is mutual interest between Connor Zilich and the 48, that being Hendrick, about possibly being in that ride next year. It's anything but a done deal that Corey Heim is going to be in the 35 next year. That being said, he mentioned Riley Herbst will likely be in the 84 for Legacy Motor Club in their third charter car that they had just bought. It's likely that Kyle Busch will stay in the 8 car because there's nowhere else really they could go. Unlike in years past, Spire seems to be content with what they have in their driver lineup, and they'll stay with the same drivers.
Rizzo, you're muted.
I'm muted? There we go.
Yeah,
My bad?
Yeah.
What was the last thing I said? I didn't even touch my screen, so I don't know how that happened.
What was it? It was like after. It's like after he mentioned about Corey Heim, I think. Oh no, it was after he mentioned Kyle Busch.
And Spire.
All right, Kyle Busch, yeah, he's supposed to stay in the 8, most likely. Spire, unlike years past, they seem content with the driver lineup that they have. The 21 seems to be an iffy question mark on whether or not Josh Berry will be in that ride. If not, if someone else will be. And then it's very likely that there will be an open car that will be racing full-time next year for RFK Racing. Not known which driver it will be, but technically the 60 car of Ryan Preece, that charter is going to be sold to Legacy Motor Club. So they will not have a third charter, but it is being reported that RFK, their sponsorships, and their drivers all know that if one of them will most likely be driving on an open chartered car next year, money payouts and everything will be very different for that, whoever that is in that car, and they'll have to race to get in. With all this news being out there now, guys, thoughts on the rumored guys to certain rides, and is it as crazy as we all thought?
It's kind of funny how, Jordan Bianchi for The Athletic can drop his article, and then not even like an hour later, Bob Pockrass for Fox Sports can drop his article. They dropped them the same day and about the exact same time. That's kind of hilarious. In terms of, overall craziness, I don't think it has happened yet, honestly, because the drivers that have been locked up are guys you would have expected to get locked up. Larson, Blaney. Stenhouse was a little bit of a shock considering that there was question marks whether Hayek was going to be able to stick around past this year if they wanted to stick around past this year, but they did, and they are apparently because they signed him back to a multi-year deal. So maybe that was a little bit shocking. Otherwise, it's just been business as usual. But again, the biggest domino, I feel like, obviously, is that 48 car, who's going to get it and whatnot. And you got Bowman potentially there, maybe for another year, and then you can put Day in there. And then obviously, you've talked about it, mutual interest between Connor Zilic and Hendrick to get him in. In my personal opinion, it doesn't make sense to put him in that car because if you like Corey Day so much, who's leaving? Who's getting kicked out then? Because he can't get stuck in the O'Reilly series because you can't kick out Zilic after bringing him over from Trackhouse and buying out his contract, which is what Hendrick would have to do in this scenario if they want to put him in the 48, is that they had to buy him out of that deal. And then after that, where's Corey Day going to go? You're not going to kick out Larson until he retires. You ain't kicking out Byron because he's the youngest guy they got there. And Elliott's the most popular driver, and I don't think he wants to leave. So it makes no sense. So for that situation, it is a tricky situation to be in for Hendrick. They have some things to think over and look through, but I'm sure, again, Hendrick is going to make the best decision possible for their race team. And going forward, in terms of future benefits, I feel like it does maybe help Corey Day in that sense because, you've seen people talk about how, in order to get better with a next-gen car, you have to actually run the next-gen car, and he hasn't run the next-gen car, and the only way he can do that is if he gets a ride. So maybe that's obviously the biggest reason why you put him in there is because, you got to get him experience. So that's the biggest, domino, I feel like, and otherwise, I don't know what the Wood brothers do with Josh Berry. He's been kind of bad this year, but I don't know a viable candidate that's, lining up to be in that 21 car, considering that 21 car hasn't been good since, honestly, Matt DiBenedetto when he made it to the playoffs, and even before that, Ryan Blaney. You could argue Ryan Blaney's been the best 21 car, 21 driver in that ride the last 10 years. So I don't know what they do for that, but they have some things to search out there. And then, Kyle Busch potentially going back to the 8 car. I know that sucks for Kyle Busch fans because they want him to leave RCR because they don't trust their consistency week in, week out. I don't blame you, but at the same time, if you look over the marketplace, Hendrick is not going to buy him. He's not going to bring him back. It's not going to happen. He's too old, and they got a young. This goes back. They got Corey Day. Coming up, is Kyle Busch going to want to sign just a 1-year deal? Because I don't know how much longer he wants to run Cup. Maybe he wants to run Cup for another 3 or 4 years. He'd only be back at Hendrick for a year before he has to go searching for another ride. Is he going to want to do that? I don't think he's going to want to do that. And then you talked about Aspire's content right now with their lineup because they got their prime young driver in Hocevar. They got their they got their stable old veteran in McDowell, and he said that he wants to continue driving. And, he has a multi-year deal still left with Aspire. And Daniel Suarez has actually done fairly good in that 7 car, better than I thought he was going to do. He's still in the chase, the top 16 for the chase. So it makes sense for Spire right now to be like, hey, we like our lineup the way it is. So unfortunately, for Kyle Busch, if he wants to continue driving a Cup, RCR does seem to be like the only likely scenario. Obviously, Hines deserves to be in the 35. He deserves to be in the 35 right now. So it's not shocking to hear that obviously he's the favorite for that. And then Riley Herbst going over to Legacy Motor Club. Legacy Motor Club spent a lot of money on that 3rd charter. So how you pay that back? You go get a guy like Riley Herbst that has monster energy backing him and whatnot. And, Legacy Motor Club is going to continue to be what they have been doing, which is, 20th to 25th place. And then maybe they can spring a Darlington win with Derek Jones or a Super Speedway win if they get lucky. But yeah, outside of the 48, I want to say this. Outside of the 48, I do think I am looking at that RFK situation because they have 3 drivers that are technically free agents, but because Lashley's going to continue to be signed. He's the partial owner, so he's not going to go anywhere. I don't think Chris Buescher is going to go anywhere. He's been at RFK for several years now, obviously, and he's won the most races for them in the next gen car. And Ryan Preece, I hate to say it to Ryan Preece and his fans, but I feel like he's the guy that's going to get the open car and have to race his way in, week out. And I don't want to pick on Ryan Preece because I know his story. I know he's been having to grind to get this opportunity, but it just makes perfect sense. Because Lasky drives a 6, Buescher drives a 17. Those cars have been a part of RFK for their entire history, basically. That 60 car just got brought up when Preece came over. And, while he's done fairly good in that ride, being very close to making the playoffs last year, and, he's had several good runs. He won the Clash, obviously. That's not a points event, but he won the Clash. And I think RFK really does like him. I think they do like their trio of drivers, but it just makes perfect sense that he'd be the guy that probably would have to suffer in terms of the finances. But hey, if he's going to continue to still drive, I think he'll be happy because, again, he mentioned earlier before the RFK opportunity came up, he thought he was going to go back to Connecticut and running late models. That's what they thought he was going to do for his entire future from then forward. But hey, he got another opportunity in NASCAR. I think he's made maybe not the most of it, but he's made probably the most he could have without the winning raw speed that RFK is still missing. I feel like they are very consistent though. So. Again, the 48 and RFK Racing. Those are the two situations I'm looking at the most. And outside of that, whatever the dominoes fall, the dominoes fall. But, I don't think it's lived up to the hype as what it was going to be. But, hey, I'm not giving up. We might see a crazy move or two here in the near future.
Okay, yeah. So I hit a button again, and then I've got Zachary over here talking to me on the side, and then I'm here. Here we go. All right. So now we're back on. Let me get this pulled back up here while we're going. So for me, I think that Corey Day's going to the 48. Back up here while we're going. So let's shut that out. All right. So now I think that Corey Day's going to the 48. I don't think there's going to be too many dominoes that fall until we see what comes out of the 48 car. And as far as the Ford camp goes, who are you going to bring up to replace Josh Berry? Who is in that camp? Who are you going to be able to pull from Chevrolet? Who are you even going to be able to pull from Toyota to bring into that car? I think that we see Berry get maybe a 1-year deal, another one, and see how that goes. Worst comes to worst, they try to go out and find somebody for Cindric. Cindric goes over to the 21 car. Maybe. I don't know. I don't like that scenario. I just don't know what Ford is going to start bringing up through the pipeline to fill that ride. I know that there's some guys in the trucks, but are you going to jump somebody from the truck series all the way up to the Cup series? Corey Heim to the 35, that's obvious. I think that needs to happen. Then let's just Riley Herbst has not run as horrible as what he has in the past. He's had some better races this year. So I think him moving over to Legacy would be a fine fit. And he does bring money. I like how Zachary brought that Monster Energy in. You pay this much, you need somebody to fill that gap in the money scenario. Then Spire, you don't need to change anything with Spire. Spire's set. Spire is on the upward trajectory. And for Kyle Busch, you've made your bed, bud. You're going to be at RCR until you decide, hey, I'm done with this. Let's go back down to the Xfinity or O'Reilly series, truck series, whatever. I do think that that is a possibility that we see in the next 3 years, probably. I know that he wanted to race with his son. I don't know how old he is right now, but I do see him moving back down with him in the coming years. So until we see what happens with 48, I don't know how many dominoes is going to fall, and that'll really start to shake everything up. Zillage, even if there is mutual interest, I don't know that you can just shut the door on Day. I do agree nobody else is leaving Hendrick. And where would you put him if you did have him? So
Yeah, I feel like everything that was reported is likely going to happen. I think Day to the 48 is highly likely, though I don't think it's probably the right time. But at the same time, though, Hendrick has a proven record of doing this, and at the same time, it has taken drivers their third year really to get that first win and actually have winning speed. Why just keep pushing it down the road? This is the guy you went out and looked for. Kyle Larson, Jeff Gordon, they all swear by him. They vouch for him. If this is your heir apparent to that 48, why wait another year and push it down the road when you could just put him in the ride now? And that being said, though, too, for Alex Bowman, where does he go? Does he take that 21 ride? If Josh Berry is gone out of that car, I feel like that's very likely. At the same time, I feel like Josh Berry, if Alex Bowman is out of the 48, does he take the 84? I'm just looking at other rides that are available that he might fall into if he is let go of Hendrick. Overall, I just that 48, I think, is the next domino to fall, like you guys have said, and from there, I think that's when everything starts opening up and we figure out who goes where. And I think the news came out when it did because Ricky Stenhouse getting re-signed with Hayek and them staying. I think them reiterating that they're going to be back and all that, I think it opened the doors and now the rumors started flowing like crazy because they probably thought that charter might be on the market. And if that's the case, that means Ricky Stenhouse would have been on the market. And even though Ricky Stenhouse is where he's at, he's definitely a Cup Series driver. I don't see him going down. And obviously, he's not going to. He just re-signed. So I feel like that Hayek re-signing Ricky Stenhouse was the domino to fall to lead to all these other ones. It's quite weird to say that being the 47 car, a 30th place driver. But, hey, when a charter is open, possibly, a lot of things could happen from then on. All right, let's move on to award ceremony. That being the Top Shelf Award and the Hangover of the Week. I'll go first. Give me with Top Shelf of the Week. Give me Corey Day, rumored to be in the 48 and getting his second career win in a great fashion the way he did it and racing. Probably the best driver of that series, getting the win cleanly. And he's on top of the world right now when it comes to O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Give me Corey Day.
Man, there is a lot. There's a couple of choices I'm having to decide between. But since, I get to pick it, I guess I got to pick this one. It's myself and Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin won, and because he won, I finally got on the board. Everyone was doubting me, including myself, that I was ever going to find myself on the board in terms of a win. I finally got it. Sure, it was the All-Star race. It still counts. I finally got a win, and if I had a cigar right now, I'd be smoking on that because it was so great to finally get on the board. So, Denny Hamlin, thank you, good sir. Thank you.
yeah, so I'll go down to the Truck Series. You all took the top two. Give me a couple of drivers here. Give me Kyle Busch going down to the Truck Series, winning another one. And give me Corey LaJoie picking up a 8th place finish in Truck Series. I feel like he's needed that upon the year. And good run for him.
Great picks, guys. Great picks. I think all three very deserving of the Top Shelf of the Week award. Now to the Hangover of the Week, the drivers and the people that do are probably having a terrible week so far. I'm going to give mine to NASCAR and the design of the All-Star race this year, just the whole thing of it. The only thing good to come out of it was that Dover raced pretty well. Besides that, it was a letdown on everything when it comes to All-Star race. Yeah, give me NASCAR and the All-Star race format and everything about it.
I mentioned earlier in my recap of the O'Reilly race, Corey Day was obviously very good, but the other guy that won the HendrickCars.com Chevrolet and Raja Caruth was not so much. He did flash a little bit here and there, but can't get in these incidents, man, without getting some kind of repercussion coming at some point. He's in a bit of a tough spot because, again, since he drives for Jordan Anderson Racing for like half the races in the O'Reilly series, he's feeling that pressure. But obviously, you can't make yourself a fool. And, he had two separate incidents, but in the same type of scenario where he was like putting himself and the driver on the outside of him in a bad situation. So, Raja Caruth, please clean it up, because I am rooting for you, because I think you are pretty good when you are on your game, but Dover was not so kind.
Yeah, Rizzo took the race, so I'm not going to follow that one up. But give me Chase Elliott. You did not wreck not once, but twice. And you did not even make the damn finals. You didn't make the main event. You left Aiden with a did not qualify for the damn race, and you was in the race. So give me Chase Elliott this week.
That's a pretty good one. Good picks, guys. Yeah, speaking of picks, we're going to move on to picks and predictions here for the Coke 600. Yeah, Aiden picked a guy that was supposed to be in it, and he didn't even qualify for it. Oh, go on.
Oh, by the way, Natalie Decker finished 34th.
Yeah, that's
34th. Improvement.
Definitely improvement, but I don't know if you guys all saw the news on Natalie Decker. I decided to leave it out because I didn't want to pour on her parade here, but she pretty much quit mid-race and had a radio meltdown, if you will, and don't think she's going to be racing anytime soon. Some people feel really bad, and then there's guys like Kevin Harvick who did not sugarcoat it and said she doesn't deserve to be racing at all. So, and I think we all know where we all stand on that one. She just does not have what it takes, and she makes other women who do drive look bad. And just get yourself right, get yourself better, and don't do what you did there. I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So let's move on and get to picks and predictions. Bunny, could you give us the running order here, where we all finished?
Yes. So this week you had Zachary with his Hamlin win. I finished second with Briscoe, which is a replay of last year's Dover race. Then Rizzo, you finished third with Christopher Bell, and Aiden finished dead last. His first fourth place finish of the year with Chase Elliott that did not qualify for the main event.
That is crazy. Zachary gets his first win, and Aiden finishes last for the first time. So Aiden obviously can't make it today, and he texted us his pick. His pick will be the defending winner, Ross Chastain. I am next, and I'm going to pick a guy that I'm surprised. I don't think any of us has picked him yet this year. I think we all may be saving him for a certain place, but I don't know where that would be at this point. I'll pick Tyler Reddick, the points leader, and he's got 4 wins on the board. It's a good 5 wins on the board. It's a good time to be Tyler Reddick fan. Give me Tyler Reddick at the Coke 600, baby. It looks like I picked your guys' pick here. You guys did not like that one.
Yeah, you almost got flipped off on that one. Like, I was hoping it would fall. I was hoping you had somebody else. I didn't have a second guy.
Oh, you were that confident.
I was that confident it was going to fall.
I did have a second guy, but I had to pick Tyler Reddick.
I already picked him. He took that guy. I don't want to say, I want to save him. If I pick this guy, give me Joey Logano. I'll take Logano here.
All right, so Reddick was one of my picks, but unlike Bunny here, I actually had a couple people in mind. So with that being said, give me Ricky Stenhouse. He's actually pretty underrated at Charlotte, and I have a couple of heavy hitters I could go with, but I'm fine with taking Stenhouse and saving those guys for later on. Remember last year I went on a hell of a run this summer, which I did not remember, but I somehow did.
Yeah, you went on one heck of a run in the summer, and I was a little concerned for my lead there, but yeah, some great picks, guys. I will say my second guy that was on the board that I was stuck between was Carson Hocevar, but I had to go Tyler Reddick. I could just see the victory happening now, but there is another guy. I'm shocked no one is picking. And this could go into predictions. I think RFK is going to race pretty well this week at the Coke 600, and I think Brad Keselowski has a really good shot at getting the victory. I could just envision it now. Him and a patriotic scheme. I've already seen it's pretty solid. Doing a burnout on Memorial Day weekend with that American flag like he always does. I could just see it now, that him doing it. It'd be awesome to see for the sport. I mean, the way he celebrates, it's one of a kind. It's very, very him. It's very on brand. So it'd be good to see. But anyway, moving on, the prediction part of it, I think we're going to see a solid race. I don't think it's going to be the barn burners that we've seen in the years past at the Coke 600. I think this car, the more we drive it, the more everyone races at the same speed pretty much. And I think we're going to see the same drivers at the front. Now, I will say, though, that I'm looking forward to is the different races that will happen in this one race. Being the early section of the race when the sun is out, who's going to be good then? And if they could still be good later when the sun goes down and the lights turn on and it's at this darkest part of the race, is their cars going to handle the same? Is there going to be those comers and goers in this race that we always end up seeing? Who's going to show up late? Who's going to be great towards the end of the race? I think that's where you see a lot of Hendrick power. They can end up showing up usually the last couple of years here. When it gets dark, they end up showing up late in these races. We saw last year, you could win from anywhere. Ross Chastain started last, and he ended up winning the race, leading the final 8 laps of this race, finally getting up to the front. So passing is possible. There'll be a lot of green flag stops. There might be some carnage in this race, but I am really looking forward to the World 600, the Coke 600. It is a fantastic crown jewel. No one does Memorial Day weekend like NASCAR does. Oh, and it's going to be the greatest day in motorsports, that being the Indy 500 that morning, followed by the Coke 600. I'm really looking forward to it, guys. How about you? What do you think of this weekend's racing?
Yeah, the Coca-Cola 600 is always a race I've always looking forward to. But not just that, obviously, I talked about it at the very beginning, how Sunday is going to be packed, and hopefully the weather will cooperate with us, please. Um, you know, I know people have always, at least obviously in recent years, have always wanted to be having quicker races, but you can't kill tradition. You can't kill the 600. And even though the 600 is long, it's a battle of in nutrition. Honestly, it still is, because we've seen some wild wrecks in the next gen era here. Bushers flip the first year in this car. I mean, he had several other big wrecks. Kyle Larson, when he tried to do the double, hit the wall, and then later on wrecked again. So, and then Rizzo said it, like Ross Chastain came from last place to get the win. And that really gives me confidence somewhat that, it can deliver obviously a good showing. But you are right. The farther we get into this car, obviously you're going to see the top contenders, dominate. And that's where you see guys like Hamlin, guys like Byron, Tyler Reddick, he's been on one, Ryan Blaney, those type of guys, that you expect to be up in the front. They can dominate. Can they go from the sun, out in the sun, to into the night? And, the only thing that's missing from this weekend, I feel like, is 900 plus horsepower going down and qualifying under the lights. That's what I miss, honestly. It's so pleasing to watch. But you said it, no one does Memorial Day weekend like NASCAR. Everything, the ceremony. I know people might kill the fact that they stopped the race to, pay their respects. But, hey, that's what NASCAR wants to do. And, I'm fine with it. I don't think it kills the racing at all. It really has in the last couple of years anyway. So, you're going to see wild restarts. You're going to see guys going from top to the bottom, try and make up top spots as much as they can. And at the end there, you're going to see the guy that obviously and the crew that handled their car the best, got the handling right there at the end, and is able to capitalize. And again, Charlotte's one of the best races that I look forward to every year. I'm definitely looking forward to this one for sure.
Yeah, Rizzo, you said it. It's the greatest day in motorsports. You got the Indianapolis 500, you got the Coke 600. We also got to throw in there Catherine Legg. She's going to be the first woman to try to do the double this weekend. And even if she's in lesser quality cars, I'm anxious to see how she does. And we've seen drivers that is in top tier equipment not be able to necessarily make it all the way through and struggle. But it'll be exciting to see what happens there. I am excited for this weekend at Charlotte. I am a fan of Charlotte. And Charlotte, the race quality itself is great with this car. And I think we're going to see a lot of action. I think it's going to be really exciting. It is a very long race. I think before we got started, I looked and it starts at 6 o'clock. So you better take a nap at some point, sleep in, because you're going to be up at midnight watching this one end. And I do appreciate the fact that they run this on a Sunday on Memorial Day weekend. And I'm anxious to get things started tomorrow night or Friday night. Friday night. Today is Wednesday, not Thursday.
I wish it was Thursday. We're closer to the weekend. But yeah, but before we get into our guest, the driver section of it, one more thing I want to add. That being with Catherine Legg running the double, there is a very good chance that she could run more miles this weekend than Kyle Larson did in his prior 2 years. There is a chance. The last 2 years when Kyle Larson ran the double, he only amounted to about 1,000 miles. He didn't even complete 1,100 miles once. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. Last year, he only ran about 594 miles. And the year prior to that, he only ran 500 miles, obviously, because of, only running one race. So that being said, there's a chance she could complete all the miles and run more miles than Kyle Larson did the last 2 years. Just a crazy stat. Like you said, Bunny, doesn't matter the equipment that you're in. It is a grueling 1,100 miles for the drivers that can try to do the double. And it is a feat to see and watch in motorsports. And I'm really looking forward to watching both of these races. So anyway, let's move on to my favorite section of the show here. Let's go to Guess the Driver. Zachary, who do we have here? Is it going to be Tony Stewart? Because, Aiden's not here. It's going to be his favorite driver. He missed that out.
Nah, he's not that lucky, obviously. Tony Stewart's a legend in his own right, but I got to save him for another day. I'm still going with the Pioneer times. Yes, I'm still doing it. This one guy is a little harder, honestly.
Great.
There wasn't that many clues about him. I tried to find as many as I could. This wasn't like the ordinary guys where, where you could easily pop out like 10 or close to 10 clues. I had to dig to try and find it. So
I thought last week was the hardest one yet, and you just said this one's even harder. So
I ain't got a chance in hell.
Yeah, if I think it's gonna be hard, Bunny, I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah, he's the only guy that's not on the board technically. Even though I don't technically win, I always win because I know who the driver is. But hey, all right. So to get things started off again, like always, this driver was born in High Point, North Carolina. This driver made his debut on the 3/4 of a mile dirt track in Charlotte, North Carolina. This driver became a bit of a short track connoisseur as most of his wins happened on short tracks. This driver actually got to race for Petty Enterprises later in his career and eventually turned that into a team owner, like a car owner venture. You got somebody? Oh, no. I thought you were about to answer. Okay.
no.
This driver held the most laps led record at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Coca-Cola 600, or back then was the World 600 until Martin Truex Jr. broke it in 2016. He led 335 laps in that race.
What could you say the year?
Yeah, it was like 1955.
Oh, okay.
This driver continued part-time starts for another 6 years, and actually, and during 4 of these, he had a winning percentage of 22% between 1969 and 1972. After retiring, this driver owned and operated a trucking company and became an entrepreneur. Very successful entrepreneur. This driver achieved over 200 top 10s in his career and 25 career wins. And again, I mentioned earlier, he captured most of these on short tracks and occasionally would run the super speedway. This driver's best finish, though, in the points was 5th because he was not a full-time driver. This 5th place points finish came in 1956.
Wow.
And that's all I got.
I'm gonna say the most random driver I could think of. I don't even think he's around this pioneer age. Fred Lorenzen.
Well, he's back there, but that is incorrect.
All right.
Larry Foyt.
He's also back there, but that's incorrect.
Oh, Tiny Lund.
I've already done that guy. Remember?
That's
I don't do repeats.
That was the weekend I was gone.
Yeah.
Could you give us some numbers? Do you have any numbers?
No, I didn't really have any numbers because he ran multiple different numbers.
Oh gosh. Do you know his most famous number?
I could look it up.
Yeah, do that.
What number did he drive for Petty?
Oh, yeah.
I could also look that up.
I bet you it was 42. That wouldn't answer it, but
it was. Yeah, it was 40. It was actually 41, 42, and 43.
no, nice. Could you give us his initials?
JP.
JP. JP. John? Is it John something?
No.
Is this a name we should know? Like we've heard of them probably.
Yeah, you have heard of him. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm trying to think of trucking companies.
Yeah, does he have a trucking company named after him?
Not anymore. When he died in 04. When he died, it closed.
No more
Jerry?
hints.
What?
Jerry?
No, that's not. It's not Jerry.
Is it Jeff or Jeffrey?
Mm-mm.
James.
Mm-mm.
Dang, I'm trying to think old names. So J. Joe? Joseph?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Jimmy?
Close.
James?
Jim?
Yeah.
Jim Peoples.
That is
Jim
incorrect.
Parsons?
That is incorrect. I think Rizzo's out of guesses.
Yeah, I'm coming up with names.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Bunny has one more guess, and I want to give him a shot. I hoped you looked at the ballot because this guy was on the ballot.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I think I know who it is. I'm blanking right now. Oh my god.
Jim Poole? I don't know.
Sadly, that is incorrect. Rizzo, you know it?
Why am I blanking on it, man? No way. Is it Phillips? Who we just got? That's Larry Phillips. Oh my god.
No.
Oh my god.
No, he was on it, but he didn't
I know
win.
he was on it. Now that you said that, like, dang. Any more hints you could give us?
Yeah, Jim Hat. That's the start of his last name, Pa.
Jim Pa. I don't know. The only other guy, Banjo Matthews, is the name that keeps it, because I know he was on the ballot. That's the only name I could just think. I'm like, obviously that's not him. And Ray Fox was on it too, but I mean, it's not them. Oh man, Ernie Elliott was on it.
Yeah.
Who else was on it?
I looked it up and I'd have never got that one.
And it was
I
Herb
would have
Nab.
never. Huh? I
Herb
would have
Nab.
never went this way.
This is how I got it too, is because I knew he was on it. I was like, I want
This
to
is
do
how
it.
you got it.
Yeah, that's how I got it. Is I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do that guy.
All right, no, I don't got it. I don't
All
got
right.
it.
So I have won again. I have stumped him, and I actually used a clue, believe it or not, because of the recent NASCAR Hall of Fame nominees. He didn't make it, but he was on the ballot. Jim Pascal was my driver for this week. 25 career wins. Again, I mentioned over 200 top tens, and he only did all this basically on short track racing. I couldn't believe it. But he was very good, and he stayed to his roots, and he grew up going to short tracks, and that's how when he built his race cars, he wanted to do it on short tracks, so that's why he only ran those. He didn't have the funding to run the full schedule, unfortunately, but in his time, he did a lot of winning, and he was very consistent when he did run. So, all in all, he made a good career out of it, and he didn't make the Hall of Fame this time, but he's on there, and I felt like he needed to be recognized. So Jim Pascal, great job for getting my attention, at least, to give you some recognition.
Wow, Zachary, I would have never gotten that. No, never would have happened. That's great pick. I can I suggest maybe we go a little easier for the future here. If I can't get it, I know. I mean, Aiden probably could have gotten it, maybe, but I feel bad for Bunny. He can't get any of these yet.
Honestly,
good.
I didn't want to say anything. I mean, he's not here, but what do I feel like Aiden gets on his phone a little bit and looks it up?
I swear I've seen him look. Have you guys seen it too? I thought, hey, those watching and listening, you better keep an eye on Aiden. But say it in the comments and you see him. I thought I'm not going to say it. I mean, we're live, so I'm saying it now, but I didn't want to say it on spot. Like,
I'm not saying that he's actually doing it. I'm just saying that I've seen him peek over there a little bit. Looks like he's on his phone typing a little bit. Just saying.
All right. Hey, thanks for saying it. All right, guys. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we call it a night?
I mean, it's not the double, but Trackhouse teammates Connor Zilch and Ross Chastain are running all 3 NASCAR races this weekend for a combined total of over 1,100 miles, I think. So good luck to them for doing it. And again, because I haven't shown my support towards it, I feel like Catherine Lake, I wish you good luck in trying to get the double done. It is very grueling to watch. Again, Rizzo said it with Kyle Larson, how he crashed both times in his second attempt and how he didn't even get to run the Cup race in his first attempt because of weather. Unfortunately, weather's in the area playing a factor once again. And again, hopefully it doesn't get in the way. And I wish you all the best in getting the double completed because, again, it is very good to see anyone try and attempt it, and hopefully she can get it done.
Yep. I'm looking forward to this weekend. I can't wait. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of racing. Those of you who stuck around to the end, we might be doing a watch along like we did for Talladega a couple of weeks ago. So make sure you tune back in on Sunday. Go ahead and put it on your phone as we're watching the race. You can hear us talk about racing stories of our own. Talk about the race. All that, and we're probably going to talk about the paint schemes because we are all nerds when it comes to the paint schemes, and we love the whole patriotic aspect of it. I watched Tyler Pinnell's video on it. Some great paint schemes this weekend for sure. But anyway, that's going to do it from all of us here at Moonshiners Racing, presented by Depot Street Sports. I'm your host, Michael Rizzo, joined with Bunny and Zachary Kendall. We'll be back next week talking all things Coke 600 Prime and getting you ready for next week. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.